Do you like listening to podcasts? Maybe you have a long commute, maybe while you're working out or just running errands. Today, we want to give you a few recommendations of podcasts that we listen to, and we believe that they can enrich and bless your life as you uh, journey in maturing with Jesus coming up. Welcome to Vine Media. My name is Reynaldo Ramos, and we just love to connect people to the vine that is Jesus. And we do that by making weekly videos and by speaking on topics that we believe can help you in your journey and giving you resources just like this video. If you find any value in our content, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell and join us on this journey as we all um, strive to become more like Jesus. Today, we want to look at podcast, and maybe you love podcasts, or maybe you don't. We really believe, no matter where you are in your opinion of podcasts, that these few podcasts that we want to recommend can bless you, can touch your life, and can really help you in maturing with Jesus. So let's jump straight in. The first podcast I want to talk about is called the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. Now, this podcast is a leadership podcast. And so if you are in any form of leadership, in senior leadership, in mid-level leadership in your church or in your ministry, or even if you are a small business owner or whatever type of leadership, this podcast is incredible. It's extremely practical. It's extremely powerful. Pastor Craig Rochelle, he touches on leadership ideas and leadership thoughts, and that they really challenge you and really make you a better leader. And so I encourage you to check this podcast out. If you have a team, even better that you would listen to the podcast with your team and then you can discuss it. He has show notes that you can look at and go through his outline. It's just absolutely incredible, filled with so many golden nuggets in leadership for you to walk and grow in your leadership. I would also say this, even if you're not in leadership, I think this podcast is extremely beneficial because leadership is more than just position. Leadership is about influence. And I think all of us, no matter where we are, whether you're in school and that's your only thing you're doing, or whether you're a CEO of a company, we all have influence. And so that's what leadership is about. And so if you find yourself with any form of influence, this podcast can be extremely beneficial. And so I would encourage you to check out the Craig Rochelle Leadership Podcast. The next podcast I want to recommend is called In the Light with Dr. Anita Phillips. In the Light with Dr. Anita Phillips. Now, Dr. Anita Phillips is a trauma therapist and a life coach, and this is her podcast. And this podcast is really, really cool because what she does is she'll have guests in and interview them. And then she also interacts with just everyday callers in that listen to the podcast. And she touches on a vast array of things. And with her background in as a trauma therapist, she really speaks into a wide array of life issues. She talks about love. She talks about relationships. And really, what I love about this is that it's a new perspective. It's a different way of looking at these things that's not so cliche. And so I would encourage you to check out In the Light with Dr. Anita Phillips. The next podcast we want to recommend is entitled 30 Minutes with the Perrys. 30 Minutes with the Perrys. And this is with Jackie Hill Perry, an artist, an author, and her husband, Preston Perry, who's an apologist, a poet, and an author in his own right. And married couple, people of God, and it's 30 minutes where they talk, and I love it because they're honest in their conversation. They are insightful in what they are speaking about, and they touch on a wide array of things as well. They talk about relationships, they talk about theology, they talk about apologetics, they talk about politics, they talk about race, they talk about parenting, they talk about everyday life struggles and life things, and they do it in a short amount of time. One of the great things about this podcast is I really feel that it's super conversational. It's almost like you're grabbing a cup of coffee with them and you're at a coffee shop or at the dinner table, and they're just talking from the heart. It's so candid, and they just have so much wisdom in the way they approach things, biblically. And so, 30 minutes with the Perrys is something I highly recommend. I also want to give you a bonus podcast, and that is the Bible Project podcast. And the reason it's bonus, and I'm gonna go real quick with it, is because it's something that we've actually recommended before in the past. And so, the Bible Project podcast, if you know the Bible Project and they do their short 5, 6, 7 minute videos, they have a podcast where they really go deeper. And so, one 6 minute video will have like 10 podcasts or 5 podcasts of an hour long. And they really go into their process on how they made the video. And so, it's if you geek out about those things like I do in those videos, the podcast is super informative in finding out even more than the videos themselves. Now, the last podcast I want to recommend, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. There's so many more podcasts, but for the sake of this video, this will be the last podcast we recommend. And it's entitled Culture Matters by The Village Church. The Village Church is a church in Texas, pastored by Matt Chandler, one of my favorite preachers and communicators of the gospel. But this is where a group of his leaders come, and they really talk about and explore the intersection of faith and culture. Look, if we're Christ followers, we have to understand that we are in this world, but not of it. But being in this world means that we do not ignore the things that are part of this world. And so this is what they do. They talk about these things. They talk about the sanctity of human life. They talk about racial reconciliation, but they also talk about entertainment, movies, TV shows, politics, art, a bunch of different things that catch our interest as humans in this world and in our culture. And they really wrestle with the idea of these topics and how we should look at it with the mission of Jesus at the forefront of our minds, at the forefront of who we are. And so, Culture Matters by the Village Church is a great podcast if you find interest in a lot of things that are happening in culture. And so, there you have it, a few podcasts that we listen to, that we follow, that we really engage with, that we think can be beneficial to you as a Christ follower. That and they touch on different things, they touch on different topics. So no matter where you are in your journey, all of these or one of these can speak into your life. And so I just pray that you check them out. And all of the podcast links will be in the description below, and you can find them on whatever platform that you can listen to podcasts in. And we really hope that it's beneficial and it blesses your life. And so, like always, we pray that you stay connected to the vine, and you stay connected to Jesus and push forward in maturing and growth and following Christ. And until that time, we will see you next time.